is Rohan Podar, and I am a visual storyteller for social good brands. I run a blog called Creatively Unsettled. It's a place for ideas, insights, and storytelling for the new age social entrepreneurship. Today, we have a special guest on our Google Hangout, and to introduce her to you, I would request my colleague and content specialist at Creatively Unsettled, Nidhi, to take it
Thank you,
forward. So
Rohan.
Nidhi, the stage is yours. Please take it ahead.
Thank you, Rohan. Hi, Servane. We're really
Hi.
excited to have you on this hangout with us. So, a little about Creatively Unsettled. Creatively Unsettled is a platform for ideas, insights, and stories to promote and foster new way social entrepreneurship. And viewers, a little about Servane, our guest for today. Uh, there are about 305 million people living in the below the poverty line community in India. And numerous women social entrepreneurs are creating change and bringing about great movement at the grassroots level, at par with the male entrepreneurs. So Servane, through her incubation firm Ogunte, is helping women entrepreneurs across the globe nurture and foster their ideas into scalable startups. Servane, we're really excited to have you with us, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Great, great. So, Servane, you have started Ogunte and Make the Wave. Can you tell us a little about both of them?
Okay, Ogunte is an organization I started in 2001, a long time ago, when I had left, jobs in the corporate world. I didn't spend a lot of time there, really, but I was an activist at heart, a campaigner at heart. I had a lot of ideas. I didn't know much how to go on with them, and I had to make a living. And I decided to start my organization focusing on social and environmental change, and precisely helping community groups to get off the ground and be more visible and be organized. And I was an events producer at heart, so I did my best to help them take off. And then, to cut a long story short, gradually did a lot more work on capacity building and helping community groups to develop. And then in the meantime, I'd moved to the UK, where there was a sort of a second wave of social entrepreneurship being born and being growing, which was very exciting. And I learned a lot by evolving in that context. And I realized at some point, they're doing exactly the same in the UK as what I had done in the Netherlands, that suddenly all the people who were attending our networking events or programs, coaching, capacity building, were women.
Wow.
I hadn't done anything for it specifically. I was just didn't do cupcakes, didn't do shoulder pads, didn't do specific campaigns about it. But it was a natural space for women who wanted to combine entrepreneurship, commercial objectives with a purpose. And generally, there were a lot of groups for community groups, charitable organization, that sort of things. There were also a lot of groups for women in business. But there was almost nothing for women in social entrepreneurship itself. So talking about 10, 12 years ago. It has now grown, which is great. And that's now we evolve in a platform that supports women's social entrepreneurship. Not just the pre-PowerPoint phase, but the ones who have already some sort of have achieved a little bit and reflected and have failed a few times and have succeeded a few times. And we walk hand in hand with them. We connect them with each other. We broker relationships, stakeholder, resources, investment sometimes. And we also, more and more, because the landscape is changing, we take care more and more take care of the intermediaries, the ecosystem that surrounds women's social entrepreneurship, or that support this. So we think in terms of ecosystem. It's not just women's social entrepreneurs. It's what does it take to make this happen and grow.
Okay, great.
That was like a realization. So that mentioned. It was like a realization for you, or a moment of realization when you saw for the first time that women are actually trying to become social entrepreneurs. it was kind of a realization of sorts that women want to make a difference for real.
No,
And then as you
women.
said, it's not about cupcakes and cutleries and recipes, but they want to do some real world
They wanted a
change making.
space. They all the women. So let's to put it to just address the thing. The women I was talking to, or I was having conversation with, were change makers or people who were supporting change in their communities or in larger groups. They're already changing things. They didn't need permission of some sort. The thing is, they knew that the grant system was not sufficient. They knew that they had some. They need to upskill, be more financially savvy. They needed to align all these the purpose and these commercial objectives. They needed to be in that space where it was not just about doing good and be nice and caring to people. It's also being commercially savvy, being able to be sustainable, and not just making your charities just for the sake of it, or keeping it alive just for the sake of it. That was a big issue as well. So they were all change makers and leaders in their own right anyway, but they had different tools or platforms to do it. And we decided to focus on that social entrepreneurship because it was a mechanism that enabled a lot of people from different backgrounds to come together and reflect and learn from each other as well. Some, as you know, the spectrum of social entrepreneurship in the world, not just the UK or India, varies from country to country. In some countries, when we talk about social entrepreneurship, it's quite what we have here as it more, there would be more charities, more charitable organization. And in other countries, they have absolutely no problem with the more social business profile, very much commercial with a bit of purpose on the side or within. But so the spectrum is very wide. And we created an incubator at some point. We call it incubator because that's the word people knew. But actually, it was a way to put all these women having different platforms to do something similar, social environmental change. They had different platforms. They had different legal organization. We put them in the same room. And we, instead of giving them the same template for another business model template or another Excel sheet, things that they could download or have, there are millions of workshops existing for that. We work with them on the mindset. We worked with them on being able to have conversation with people who are not from the charitable world, who are from the commercial organization, or vice versa. We enable them to have more of an open innovation mindset, and to make something good and to worry on the legal structures afterwards.
Right. So the nurturing part comes first and then the operational part comes later, because once creativity is born, once you are sure about the innovation that you're going to bring about, all other things fall in place automatically.
It'd be nice if it were falling, but it doesn't happen all the time. But it is important to keep your creativity and also to keep your to be able to stay open to other platforms or other sectors. If you keep focus on your thing only, you will not learn enough. And there are plenty of things that you won't see. It's just it's that kind of silo thinking. So. We ask a lot. They ask themselves a lot of things. That be able to eat whilst they're doing all this, feed a family or care for other people, whether it's children or relatives or other people. We ask them to innovate. We ask them to deliver. We ask them to be accountable, to measure their impact. Otherwise, what's the point? We ask them to be profitable at some point, because otherwise they won't be able to function or to invest. Whether it's their staff or the skills or technology, whatever, and we ask them to also continue to learn with people who are not having the same kind of language to them. We ask a lot, but I guess entrepreneurs are like that, and if they want to perform well, they have to deliver on these points.
Yeah, great. So Servane, I happened to watch one of your TED Talks, which took place at Leeds University, where you requested your audience to, take off their glasses, let their hair down, stomp their feet, and turn in their places. So, what was that? I think you named it as tantrum physics. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's about love or tantrum physics. And it reminds me a lot of people who want to change things. They get upset, they get offended by something they see, and then they want to start something straight away. They want to change something. And my point was, there's no point having a tantrum. The process of change takes a lot of time. I wish I was like Wonder Woman and spin and save the world. That's what we tried during the talk. And as you realize, some women could not, for instance, basically ask the audience to experiment what it is, to spin around and to be much more powerful than we thought we were. And some were okay in spinning around, but others were actually, it took a lot more than just spinning around and change the world. What it takes a lot more love for others, but a lot of love for yourself. A dedication to change. It's not about changing the world. It's what is it that you're ready to change in yourself, and how do you want to look at your own story to create change that is your size. For instance, that's a bit cryptic, isn't it? So some people are very interested in taking care of refugees and things like that, but they don't know where to start. And they feel overwhelmed by this. And you can't just create a social business from, on a Monday and eradicate the refugee issue on a Saturday. However, there might be things that you can start doing gradually. What that you need to take care of, and what are the questions that you need to ask yourselves first? And it will lead to conscious innovation. I know that's something we're going to talk in a minute about, but it's about before you start spinning the plates, spinning yourself and try to get as many awards for your social entrepreneurship, there are things you need to change within. And for women social entrepreneurs, it might be your relationship to money. For women social entrepreneurs, in some areas, it could be your bias, your racism. For others, it might be a cultural difference. You think you're less good than others. For others, it's a gender issue. They're still submitted, to gender inequality, and they cannot go further than that. So, if you can't do this on your own, you need to create alliances. Starts to communicate in a way that other understands, and you can't have tantrums because it's not going to work. So what is the kind, and you need a lot of love to be able, it's a labor of love to be able to do that. And I think love is something that people understand. It's not fluffy, it's hard. It's very hard to align yourself and to find the balance to be able to deliver on the ground. But there's a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves, and why we do all this change making and social innovation, and is there some bits that we should change or experiment ourselves or with our neighbors first, see if it works.
So what is that one feeling that the participants of the workshop walk away with? What is the key takeaway? What kind of feedback you received from these women or the participants after they reached home and they thought about it and they did some bit of it that was discussed or at the workshop? What's the kind of feedback you've received on that?
So the thing is, some of them were more advanced than others. Okay, they had different tools. They were coming from different sectors. We were agnostic about the sectors. So for some of them, it was the opportunity to see future clients. Okay, for instance, we had in the first incubation program, we had Teresa Burton from BuzzBank, one of the first social enterprise crowdfunding platform. And she was financially savvy. She still is. She's doing very well. And it was a way for her to understand how her colleagues, her peers were functioning and the way they were managing all these money issues and the way they're talking about themselves. So for her to be able to be for 4 or 5 months in the same room, so partially in the room, but also through webinars and through various contacts, it was a way for her to do a great market research. For others, because we were mainly having face-to-face meetings with, for instance, funders, grant makers, VCs, and angels, all women, they demystified all the stories they've heard around money and women being less confident and women being less investable and all this stuff. They demystified that, and they learned to to realize that the confidence was there all the way, but they needed to ask themselves for permission to be confident. They were confident, but they didn't realize they were. Okay?
Yeah.
So that it's a little subtlety, and I'm always saying, so you do not be trapped in that myth. Confidence is a volatile currency. One day you have that in one sector, in one thing, in one piece of your life, and another day you haven't got it, and that's fine. But don't let anyone say that women are not confident. Women are not risk takers. That's not true. That's not true. Okay. So we learn to pay attention to words. They learn to communicate about their social business differently, and they learn to, from the more technical side, they learn to put together due diligence packs. You know, the things we always say, nah, later. and they learn not to be afraid of doing this stuff. You know, so they grew, they were bigger, their auras were much bigger at the end of the program. They say that they also learned to look differently at challenges. It's a major mindset change, principally. Cognitively,
Great.
they could do all this stuff, but they had to give themselves the permission to feel confident about it.
That's splendid. Great. So Servane, you are a conscious innovation coach. So can you just tell us briefly, how are you how are you using conscious innovation to, help your mentees or the women social entrepreneurs who come to you?
Well, conscious innovation, it's a way of thinking. It's a process. It's about putting the individuals at the heart of change. Okay, so it's not dissociating yourself from what happens in front of you, and it's exactly what I've mentioned earlier. It's what some people would call system design, where you really need to engage in conversation and understanding what's going on and put yourself in the middle of the conversation as well. You can't just think in binary terms. It's about me and them, or us and them. We need to involve in a sort of, it's a system thinking process. So what I engaged when I worked with coachees, individuals, or as groups, or in corporations, or in social businesses, or community groups, we tend to invite people to sit around the table, to be at the table, but also help them to engage in conversation with people they wouldn't sit with normal times, or envisage these conversations. We have exercises that enable them to understand and grasp the world from someone else's perspective,
okay,
and to change the way you talk about it. So it's system thinking in a fun way and an experiential way. It's not about creating more heroes, more social entrepreneurship heroes. It's about being more attuned in with what you can do and what you can't. So it's a process. It's a process. For instance, it's what's interesting is that you can do that also with people who invest money, and you have funders, VCs, and stuff like that. Or they create a fund to create change, but they just pay the check. They're not really much involved in the vision, in the creation of the vision for their funds, and that's the problem. So the conscious innovation principle would be to invite them at the table and make them do stuff or experience stuff, have them talk with people who benefit from these funds, and get them to hear firsthand about the change that it could bring about, or the fraud in the system they've just designed.
Okay, great.
So, Servane, this could be like a typical conference like this or a workshop like this would have somebody like a venture capitalist sitting with maybe a farmer, let's say, and maybe talking to him about the intervention that the entrepreneur came to him with, how that has changed his life. Understand from him his own experiences, which helps him get an insight which otherwise he wouldn't get in his own air-conditioned office.
Yeah,
Would
but
that be,
it's also a way. Yeah, it's also a way for the person who, if it's agriculture professional suppliers to farms or whatever, to understand where these people come from as well. So it's a two-way conversation. I think it's a peer-to-peer conversation. Maybe it sounds naive, but we have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah.
It needs to be a
Definitely.
two-way system. What are
You
the
have
constraints?
Yeah, so you have a perspective of the venture capitalist on one side, and you have the perspective of a farmer, and in all they never meet, right? And when they meet, I'm sure that will lead to a lot of curious conversations, and I'm sure it will be like an exchange of ideas for both, and that can happen between any two individuals or multiple individuals who come from different walks of life.
Yeah, it can.
Great, great. So, Servane, I mean, as you mentioned that, you were in a mainstream corporate career before this. So, what really pushed you, what really gave you the nudge to join, to, shift your career to being a social entrepreneur? Was it something that you had in mind already? Or, it was something that, lit that spark that, okay, I have to do this now? Or was it something
Okay.
that you wanted to do all your time, all your life?
Well, first of all, I didn't have what we call a career. I had a couple of jobs. It's more incidental, and I had an interesting life. And on the side, I had to eat, so I got myself some jobs in these large companies. And that brought me to fulfill, various marketing and customer service roles. And
Okay.
however, I grew up in a family, a divorced family, that had very strong positions and opinion about anything. And I come from France originally, and as we know, we like a little demonstrations from time to time. So I grew up in demonstrations, not always knowing what they were all about, but forming a very, very strong opinion about them. And gradually you refine, you become a bit more subtle, and you understand more what's at stake. So I had always an appetite to learn about social justice, and very clumsily wanted to be involved in all sorts of groups, and journalism as well, and jack of all trades. That said, my small episodes in these career in these career experiences and marketing experience, I learned a lot. I learned that I wanted to do more social social entrepreneur, not social. There was not a name for that back in the day. So I wanted to be more socially involved, because in these companies, when you get in these companies, you get the rate of the day for the stock exchange, and that's not the first thing I want to see when I come into a building. So that was a sort of one thing I say, nah, I don't feel comfortable with that. However, I had great mentors then. I learned a lot on operation sides and performance and KPIs and all these jazz. Not everything is bad. So to perform well, you need some sort of background in that. It's great. I'm still in touch with my mentors from them. So thanks to social media, almost 20 years later, can you believe that? And some of them have also jumped ship. They work with purpose companies now.
Okay, great.
It's not due to me. They just follow their heart. And Ogunte was born out of all that, to see social change happen, and I needed to eat, and good God, you can't just multitask. You need to do everything in one go, in one thing. So that's why I started like that. But
That's great.
yeah, it was a good school, and I remember that you need to have these kind of performance or KPIs or goals. It's annoying, but otherwise you don't know where to go. You know where you go.
I know. I understand. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Sarvin, I had one question. So just curious to know, have you ever been to this part of the world, to India particularly?
Once in
Because
Delhi.
this is a mecca of social entrepreneurs. That's what I believe.
I
What about
know,
you?
but I'm in touch. I'm in touch with fantastic ladies. I know, for instance, Ajaita Shah,
Yes.
who does
Yeah.
frontier markets.
Frontier
I'm a
markets.
fan.
Frontier markets, yeah.
Frontier markets, yeah.
Oh, is it?
She
Okay.
she does. She worked with solar silos, so she She identified women leaders and women-focused NGOs that she trains, and she partners with them, and they sell solar products to other women. So she reaches, areas that are not reachable, and she work with the experts, that is the women in villages or rural areas that know exactly what people need. So that's Ajaita is wonderful because she used system design to shape her work, and she's phenomenal, and I'm an absolute fan of her work. And there is also Minu Vadera from Saka Cabs, who created that large training companies for women to learn how to drive taxis and also do the mechanics and to run this taxi organization and have women as clients. What I love with India is the capacity to absorb numbers that are crazy. They serve thousands and thousands of people and say, ooh, there's a big operational routine going on there. It's very, very disciplined. So the world has a lot to learn from India and social entrepreneurship, especially women social entrepreneurs in India. I think we should give more credit in a mainstream press. The business press knows about it and all the awards, we all know about them. But I think in mainstream media, we need to know. So I'm sure that Creatively Unsettled is the place to disseminate the good news. This is great.
We would really love to. In fact, we would really love to have Ajaita and a few others that we've been speaking to, and understand their stories as well. But do you think what you've already accomplished in UK, we can use that template in India as well, the conscious innovation workshop, or do you think that India is a different place to be, in something different?
Look at this. Sadly, there's a lot of things to solve. Okay, social entrepreneurship is not the silver bullet. Technology is not the silver bullet. There's a lot of work everywhere. What we've done is to be able for people to communicate, especially women social entrepreneurs and their ecosystem to communicate. We've created a map. It's at map.ogunte.com, where women can pin their ventures and start tweeting to each other and get talking. The system design, system thinking is not. It's nobody's ownership. It's everyone. Everyone, I think, should have a go at thinking simply and thinking systemically around their ventures and the way they engage with others. We work with ambassadors. It's a big name, isn't it? Ambassadors. Women who have wonderful networks in different parts of the world, and because they communicate extremely well and they have great work going on, and they also have that focus and attention on women social entrepreneurs, they connect with each other. So the ambassadors are key connectors. Okay, you can see on the map, you can see the ambassadors, who they are, and connect with them. And I would say that there are specific issues in some countries. It's more prevalent than others, where social entrepreneurship works well. But if we had more attention on gender equality and or gender equity, we'd be much more successful and have a more inclusive society. So sometimes you can't just work on enterprise only, but you have to work as a system and see what else needs to change. It might be more women on board. It might be more voices for women, what you do. It might be more a space of this decision-making table, a media that talk about women differently. We need to infiltrate. And it's not about, working against men or things like that. It's to, think differently about what does it take to have an inclusive world, and what does it take for people whose business it's not be kind. What does it take for them to change their mind, and how can they benefit as well?
Yeah, so I think what I see is there's a lot of this the rate of entrepreneurship in women is also dependent a lot on social cultural context. The more equal or the more gender equal women in the society are, you have more chances of having women entrepreneurs. Do you see some specific problems for women entrepreneurs which are not there across any geography? I mean, that may be. But overall, do you see any specific problems for women entrepreneurs?
Yes, gender equality. gender equality. I can only talk about women social entrepreneurs, but I can tell you, for women in general, gender equality is a big issue. And all the narratives that circulate and that make them believe that they're not as competent as they are, or make others believe that women are not, they're a second-class citizen. We need to stop this right now. That's the problem. There are a lot of women who are extremely successful, but they're still patted on the head. I say, you're good woman. That is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. The other thing is, where is entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship, as it were, promoted? Sometimes, because women have had a lot of not just affinity, because it's not natural, it's acquired. They've had a lot of, they've been working or volunteering in spaces where we let them volunteer, which is with children or education or arts or health, because we thought that women were best suited to do these, to work in these places. We know now, of course, that they're best suited to work anywhere they want. So the thing is, because they were in these places as volunteers or activists, we promoted entrepreneurship in these places. And this is why sometimes, and there are a lot of studies that show that we see much more women social entrepreneurs in education, in health and arts, simply because that hasn't been promoted in the other places. So we need to be very careful in the correlation or the absence of correlation, and why we have the numbers we have today. And lastly, there's still more, there's still a majority of men entrepreneurs anyway, in any categories you watch anyway. So there's still a lot of work to do. But for God's sake, let's work together.
Great, Servane. So yeah, I mean, I really agree to whatever you just said, saying that, I mean, we do see such problems happening in India as well, where the mindset of people is such that, okay, only this particular sector or these particular sectors are reserved for women to actually participate, to grow, and to bring out their ideas. Now, if there is a woman who is, who's great at agriculture, and she wants to open her own firm which is going to supply intelligence, consultancy, and tools and implements to farmers, it is not accepted in the first go. So yeah, what your ideas and what you just said about conscious innovation and about how women social entrepreneurs do face a lot of problems, but they overcome it with all their hard work, and they're doing really great in the social entrepreneurship space. So
and just one more thing,
yeah.
Servane, and that's the beauty of why we do this hangout. It's like, it's a privilege to talk to women and even men and people, basically persons, with ideas, because we believe that ideas will change the world, and ideas that have been different from the 19th century thinking, from the 20th century thinking, from the industrial world. You need ideas which are centered on social good. You need to adapt capitalism to social good. And that's why we are so excited at Creatively Unsettled to speak to a person like you, especially given the fact that you're a woman and you're trying to help other women, and we see you as a great enabler in the whole process. And of course, it will take an effort of tons of women to do this, but we need women like you.
And men.
You are absolutely right, bang on. And men, of course.
The men who come to our events are having a whale of a time, because they're open for conversation. There are system thinkers. They're great, and we all work fabulously well together. So I don't know why the others are just shutting the doors to that.
Great. Let's just hope that things change, and they will for sure. And please do keep your good efforts on. And it was a lovely evening talking to you for both me and Nidhi. So
thank you again, Servane.
To close.
Yeah. Thank you again, Servane, for taking your time out to actually join us on this call. And I'm sure whoever is going to watch this video is going to really benefit out of whatever you shared with us, the insights and the ideas. And viewers, thank you for watching and joining us on Creatively Unsettled on this Hangout. Please sign up and stay tuned on Creatively Unsettled. There are a lot of other awesome things coming your way. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Servane.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.